Hello, everyone. So, I recorded the video, but then I wanted to share some. I was inspired by that Phoenix story, and I decided to do a couple of drawings. So I actually ended up doing three. I only meant to do two, but I ended up doing three. So the video's a little late. It just was not ready by yesterday to finish the drawings and get the video in. I had just had so many things to do. So I'm gonna show you real quick what I did. I've posted the uh, inked versions also on Instagram and on X. So if you follow me there, you can take a look and check them out. So this is the first drawing with a canvas background. So if you can see, you can sort of see a canvas, and then this is what it looks like without that canvas background. So I just thought it was kind of cool with canvas background. So then here's the second one, and same as the other one. This one has a different canvas background on it. So I also wanted to do that fire in it just in the bottom, and I was like, okay, so I manipulated. I just used Google Images and picked a fire, and then I kind of cut around it, um, and then I used a background of outer space. I was a little so the center image was like a galaxy, but she ends up covering it, so that's all right. All right, and then this is without that canvas filter on it. You can see that it looks just a little bit brighter. And then I have one more. This one is more of a drawing. So these were a little bit of just paintings. So they took me a little bit. And then originally I didn't have this border, but without the border, um it was really difficult. So I decided to add a border on it. It just blended too much. And I wouldn't have done the Phoenix fire like this. It just this part just kind of blends with the hair. So but anyway, I'm not a professional. So and then one more canvas. This is more of an ink drawing, only I colored. So I used the same as you would have inking it, only I used color. So and then without the canvas. So anyway, so three Phoenix drawings to kind of whet our appetite for our story today. So anyway, hope you enjoy the video coming up. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. Goodbye. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan page that has plot synopsis to the story and character bio. So we are going to be continuing our way all the way to the Dark Phoenix saga and past that. We're going to end up doing all of John Byrne's run. So we're starting from the very beginning. And then after that, we'll probably do particular story arcs, but we won't be doing every issue. But we are going to go from Giant Size X-Men #1 all the way to the end of John Byrne's run. So we are doing Classic X-Men. I have a playlist. We started with Classic X-Men #1 and have covered every single one. I prefer Classic X-Men because #1, this is how I discovered the X-Men. I was 12 years old when this series started, and these issues were unaffordable. Heck, I'm an adult now, and I still can't afford them. But I still have my beat-up copies of Classic X-Men. And this wonderful cover by Arthur Adams. Look at this. So, Arthur Adams inked, well, penciled and inked this amazing cover. So, yeah. So here we go. Here's the original cover of X-Men 101. This one, of course, is very iconic. Which one do you like? Most people, of course, are going to go with this one here. I like this view of the Phoenix. So, but Art Adams doesn't do a bad job. Here's this front piece. Like I said, this is how I discovered the X-Men. So the way Classic X-Men works, if this is your first video, I suggest you go to the playlist. But so Chris Claremont basically wrote a bunch of supplemental material. Dave Cockrum is the original penciler. Tom Morgan did the supplemental pages. Looks like he did 7, 8, and 9. And then John Bolton does the backup story. So John Bolton is his own inker. Arthur Adams did the cover and the front piece, and then the back cover will be by John Bolton. So we are going to basically continue where we left off here. You're going to notice the letterer. It's still not Tom Orzechowski. He didn't come till much later. So, prologue. Welcome to the last moment of a young woman's life. Her name is Jean Grey. For 20 minutes now, while her fellow X-Men sit helplessly in the ship's radiation-proof life cell, she has been piloting the Star-Score space shuttle toward Earth through the worst solar storm in living memory. It was an all-or-nothing gamble that her telepathic powers would protect her from the cosmic radiation. I don't know how they understand comic books, but if you have powers of the mind, that normally isn't going to help you with radiation. So, all right. So, oh my goodness. Anyway, we'll continue here. Long enough for her to fly the shuttle into the safety of Earth's atmosphere, and for her friends, it may have paid off, but for Jean Grey, and here we can see they're landing. They looks like they're gonna crash land in the water. Here they go, and they crash, and of course, like a phoenix from the ashes. So, and it's lands, but because of the momentum, it skips and then lands in the water. And it looks like the X-Men weren't gonna make it, but come the X-Men. And Colossus says, Cyclops, I was the last one out. Then we are safe. All except the lady who got us down here. I'm going back for her right now. He says, Cyclops, are you mad? You cannot save Jean. The radiation, the crash. And Cyclops says, you stopped me once before, Nightcrawler. Get in my way this time and I'll kill you. So, a little bit more violent, these X-Men. Love Wolverine. His, Cyclops, all of you, look. Something's happening to the water. And Cyclops says, right over where the shuttle sank, but what? And then, of course, here comes the Phoenix. Hear me, X-Men. No longer am I the woman you knew. I am life. I'm sorry, I am fire, life incarnate, now and forever. I am Phoenix. So, great, iconic piece there. And then she's like, my mind's burning. So many memories, sensations, pain inside, tearing me apart. What's happening to me? What have I done? And then she calls out for Scott, and Scott calls out for Jean. And he's like, take it easy, hon. I've got you. You're safe now, Jean. The flight's over. We're all back on Earth, and you're going to be all right. So, she's lying so still, barely breathing, almost no pulse. Stop thinking like that, mister. She'll pull through. She's got to. And so he carries her. And so, Cyclops, your costume. I know, Colossus. There are more. Her costume. And he says, there are more questions than we can handle right now. Jean's creating a costume out of nothing, using powers she never had before. The very fact that she's still alive, but she is alive, I'll settle for that. And so, for the moment, students, let us not compound our problem. Perhaps the fewer costume super beings present when the police arrive, the better. And so Nightcrawler uses his image inducer. And so, and then Nightcrawler says, I'll expand its range to the maximum extent to cover us all and cloak us completely from view. In effect, we'll become invisible. And Dr. Corbeau says, better leave me out of it, Nightcrawler. Someone's going to have to explain this mess. And perhaps take the rap for it, as you wish, Dr. Corbeau. And so, this guy goes, I need a medic. I got a survivor here. This guy is calling out for the EPA because of the fuel of the shuttle. And so they're going to look for any on board. And he goes, no, I'm the only one. Corbeau, Director, Project Starco. Terrorists hijacked space station. My crew murdered. And then Wolverine is like, do you think anybody will buy his story? And so they got bigger problems right now. So, and Phoenix, you can see here, the light, the glory, stars, worlds, all creation, a part of me. Cyclops, or no, sorry, Professor X says, Storm, summon a wind to fan the smoke in our direction so we may slip under its covers. And Phoenix, of course, is still going so much, too much reality already slipping away. And then Wolverine says, that gets us off the field, Charlie. Where the heck do we go from here? And so we now get supplemental material that was not in the original issue. So Storm is flying into the X-Men's headquarters, the X-Mansion. And so Storm says, there is our home. How peaceful and serene it looks. If only our lives were the same. I must be quick. The others are depending on me. What happened to Jean? In Africa, I was a goddess. I wonder, mad as it sounds, if Jean may have become one. And so Storm is going through getting outfits for everybody. And then hurries on out and heads back to New York City. And so he's using, Professor X is using his mind powers to sort of hijack this person here. And so everybody is going to go in. And he feels bad, but he puts in money for him so that this is not all for nothing. So Cyclops says, Professor, we can't show Jean like this. Her costume's bound to stir up talk. It's weird. Not like normal cloth. It doesn't seem to be any way to remove it. And so Wolverine's like, that bub will be my pleasure. And Cyclops says, she's the claw mister before I ram it. And suddenly she changes. And they're like wondering how it happened. Professor X says, fascinating. Fundamental reorganization of molecular structure. Telekinesis of the highest order. And until now, beyond even Jean's potential, let alone her capability. So Cyclops like, she's unconscious. How did she know what needed doing? And Banshee says, easy lad, let's get her into the hospital. Then we can try to puzzle out the rest. So, and so we go now to Dave Cockrum here. Wolverine is walking through. We get to hear that they all believed Dr. Corbeau's story, and there's no mention of the X-Men. And Jean is in the hospital already. And so Wolverine is buying some flowers. And he asks, "Hey, are you buying them for your sick friend?" And Wolverine's like, "That's none of your business, bub. Here's your buck. I'll take the flowers." So Wolverine's like, "Man, you gotta be crazy. You know that acting like a school kid, still wet behind the ears, and for some broad. What's Jean Grey to you anyway? Someone I like and want. And what Wolverine wants, he gets. Um, but not this time." So Wolverine's, like I said, he's smitten like a school kid, but everyone's just kind of sitting there, waiting. Here's Moira McTaggart. So the X-Men are waiting, and Wolverine tosses the flowers. So, and Moira says, "The doctors have been with Jean for such a long time. Charles, are you sure there's nothing you can do? Perhaps using your telepathic powers?" And Professor X says, "I only wish I could, Moira, but I can't. Every time I use them to any great extent, my mind is savaged by my cursed dream." So he's kind of been having the dreams, if you remember. Lately, anything beyond absolutely minimal power brings on a seizure. "No, Moira, I cannot help this girl. I once thought I loved as much as you do. I cannot even help myself." And so you can see Moira and Banshee are holding hands here. Moira, it'll be over soon. I'm thinking. I can feel it." And Nightcrawler is talking to Colossus here. "Poor Scott. He's such a man of action. This endless waiting must be a living hell for him." And so Scott's thinking to himself, "All those wasted years when I loved Jean and she loved me and neither of us had the sense to tell the other. And now if she dies, it'll all have been for nothing. I mean, what do you do when the light goes out of your life? When Jean moved down to the city to build a life for herself outside of the X-Men, I let her go because I thought that the X-Men were what gave my life meaning. But they're not. It's Jean. It's always been Jean. Only I never realized it till now. So when I'm about, I never realized till now when I'm about to lose her forever." And so over the, he overhears something. "It's not like you to argue with the reality of Dr. Corbeau or deny the evidence of your own eyes." And Scott's like, "Huh?" as he overhears it. "Face it, my friend, as Sherlock Holmes often said, once you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." And so Cyclops says, "Dr. Corbeau, Dr. McKay, how is she?" And Dr. McKay says, "It's going to be touch and go for a while, Mr. Summers, but with rest and proper care, friends to look after her, Dr. Corbeau and I think Miss Grey is going to be just fine." And the X-Men rejoice. And so Nightcrawler noticed Cyclops going in there, and he is so happy. He cries, but those are tears of joy. So, all right. So Nightcrawler tells Professor X that Cyclops will be out in a moment, and Professor X says that he doesn't need Cyclops for what he has to say, but he can only say it if the rest of them do him the courtesy of quieting down. Banshee says, "No need to snap, Charles," and Professor X apologizes. He says the pressures of the last weeks are beginning to take a toll on him, essentially. So he says, which is part of the reason I'm sending you five on an enforced vacation. And Wolverine, you can see he takes his claws out. He says, "Stick it in your ear, bub, because none of us are going anywhere till Jeannie's better." And Professor X says, "Control yourself, Wolverine, and for once in your life, listen and think. You heard the doctor. Jean's recovery depends on the care and attention she receives, care that Scott and I are prepared to give her. Unfortunately, we can't look after Jean and run the X-Men at the same time. Therefore, a brief and well-earned holiday is in order. Whatever happens, I won't have you staying around the hospital. You'll just get in the way. So, Banshee says, I'm not sure I agree with what you're saying, Charles, but you're the boss. And if you're still undecided about where to send us, I think I can fill that bill. It seems so my lawyer, Mr. Flaherty, writes me that I've inherited the Cassidy ancestral home. And Professor is like, let me see. It's in a remote part of the county. I don't know. This I understand. It's more like he's trying to write them how they speak, but um. So Professor X thinks that it's an excellent suggestion, and they'll make arrangements, and he tells the X-Men to have a good time. So they're flying all the way to Ireland, and then they take a train, and then they take this little car. So, and you can see they're bumping. Very cool here. So, Banshee says, now don't get yourself into an uproar, midget, as he's referring to Wolverine. That's how we build our roads here, with character. Real quick, Wolverine is supposed to be shorter. He's supposed to be like in the 5.5 foot, but range. He's supposed to be shorter than everybody else, but everybody just draws him like a normal person, so it gets lost in there. People just need to remember that he's supposed to be shorter. So Storm says, if so, then you should build your automobiles to match, say with springs and softer seats. She would have been better off flying. So, and Banshee says, it's a pretty day, but Professor X says, don't bring attention to yourselves. And Colossus is like, the professor's not writing in this 4-wheeled torture chamber. And so, and they've finally arrived. And here's Cassidy Castle, because, hey, why can't they have these things? And so, unglaublich, which I think means unbelievable or awesome or something like that in German. Banshee, this is incredible. You say you grew up here? And he says, yep. It must have been marvelous. Yeah, well, I suppose it's time for me to switch to my human guys. And he says, I don't know, bub. Place like this, I figure you'll fit right in the way you are. So we'll look at this very good panel there, or splash page by Cockrum. So we can see our heroes are being watched by Black Tom. So I think that's Storm behind us says, how do we get in? And Banshee says, simple. I ring the doorbell, and we wait for Mr. O'Donnell to lower the drawbridge. And so Black Tom says, so, cousin, you've come after all, and brought friends with you as expected. 5 flies winging their ways into Black Tom's web, never to escape alive. You have your orders, Eamon O'Donnell. Escort them in, make them comfortable, but give them no inkling that anything's amiss. No, Tom Cassidy, I'll never do that. I've done evil things in your service, but I'll no party to the murder. He's not gonna help him kill innocent people. And so Black Tom is like, you defy me, will you? Have you forgotten the lives I hold in the palm of my hand, the lives of those you hold here, held hostage for your good behavior, and you dare defy me? And so Black Tom hits him with his stick. You'll be party to whatever I tell you, little man, or you'll watch those who love and trust you die in agony. Is my meaning clear, Eamon O'Donnell? And so Eamon O'Donnell is like, I curse your butcher's heart. It's clear as crystal. So from behind him, someone says, you're a fool to trust him. And Black Tom says, that's where you're wrong, my friend. As long as the families are in my power, he'll do whatever I command. So he'll even betray a man he loves as his own son. So the X-Men, basically, he's telling them to get them in. Storm, remember, she's claustrophobic. She's feeling caged, just all stone, no flowers, no nothing. So so they say, I hope your room's satisfactory, but you can see these creatures are kind of looking down on them. And so Storm's in her room, and she's like, Banshee, you're so happy to be home. While I will only be happy the day I leave this castle forever. Jean would say Cassidy Keep has bad vibes for me, but it does not. But and it does, but I will not be ruled by my fears. I must force myself to relax. So she gets naked and she calls her own rainstorm. So she gets ready for the party. Nightcrawler arrives to escort her, and she's like, "Hey, you're not even ready." So he uses his image inducer. So this would be oh my goodness, frankly Scarlet. What is his name? Oh, some of these oh my goodness gracious. I'm sorry. I'm not I know this is Groucho Marx, and I think this is Charles Bronson. Clark Gable, but this guy don't know who he is. He does look recognized. So she takes off her gown and or her robe, and she was wearing this beautiful gown, and Nightcrawler is just taken aback, and she goes, "Tell me, Kurt, am I pretty?" And he says, "Ororo, you're one of the most beautiful women it has been my privilege to know. If that's true, then thank you, I think," she says. So it's time for dinner, and he puts on his cap, and he arrives, and everyone says, like, "What gives?" The old man said this was a formal shebang. So what's with you coming out the table looking like coming to the table looking like a stable hand? And so he says, "I'm the lord of this manor. I get to come to dinner, dress however I please." So, and of course, Peter's like, making the moves on Storm 2. And Nightcrawler's like, "Back off, Peter. Tonight, Aurora's my date." And he says, "I'm no one's date, Kurt. I enjoy it with being both of you, which means that the three of us will go into dinner together as equals." So, as they're walking, it's a trap door, and suddenly they all like get their costumes on. So, as they're falling, so they arrive, and of course we have Black Tom and the Juggernaut here. So Black Tom says, "Why, dear cousin Sean, how nice of you to shall we say, drop in. In case you haven't guessed, my muscular friend and I are the villains of the piece. I'm Black Tom Cassidy. And I, students of Charles Xavier, my deadly hated state brother. Oh yes, we know who you are, X-Men. I'm the Juggernaut, and together we two are going to do what no other villain in the history of the world have been able to do. We're going to kill the X-Men." So, Banshee says, "Is that meant to scare us? Do you plan to talk us to death?" And, "Bluster away, cousin. It'll do no good. You're in the dungeons now, deep inside Cassidy Crag, with countless tons of rock between you and freedom. You've no chance, Banshee. This place will be your tomb." And of course, remember, Storm is claustrophobic, and she's like, "Tomb, closed in, rock, no way out. Rocks bury me, crushing me. Can't breathe, can't think. Mother, help me." And then she begins to scream. And we end the issue. Who shall stop the Juggernaut is next. But remember, this is classic X-Men. I show you in the beginning that there is a backup story. And so we got a story called The Gift. So we're back in New York. This story probably would have taken place in the beginning of the story, but that's all right. The sounds of the city are muted in the last haunted hours before dawn, the witching time when as many ghosts as people are said to walk the earth. A radio is playing out by the nurse's station, vintage folk in keeping with the moment and the mood as Simon and Garfunkel's counterpoint themselves through the Scarborough Fair. A Christmas tree stands in the plaza below. He's been staring at it for hours. In the past night, the new year well and truly begun. Why, he wonders without really caring, hasn't anyone taken it down? So here's that Christmas tree he's referring to. So, the tree is supposed to signify a time of celebration and joy, yet there is none in Kurt Wagner's heart, or would we say Wagner, like they do in German. So, he's been waiting too long, as have all the X-Men, for words of their stricken teammate Jean Grey, who brought them home from space. So this is taking place when they were all in the hospital together, probably at the cost of her own. He visited the hospital chapel, lit candles, offered prayers. Jean remains unconscious, deep in a coma, yet neither has she died. He wants to do more, and chafes as the whole team does the knowledge that he can't. Then, and so he hears something. In a puff of smoke and noisome flame, he vanishes from the room. That's his power, the genetic quirk which makes him more than human, and in the bargain gives him the features of a roguish devil, and his talent to teleport instantaneously from one spot to another. The others have powers too, and all have been banded together by their teacher, Charles Xavier, into a team of superheroes. And so, Nightcrawler says, or thinks, what in heaven's name have we here? Poor little think, he looks miserable. Small wonder considering the cold. And so you can hear, like, and he's like, in the tree, making noise. It's getting louder, coming closer. By the way, the letters are by Tom Orzechowski. And it's this little bird, so, which scares the kid. And Nightcrawler laughs. And this is pretty cool. You can't. Nightcrawler has indigo skin, so he kind of blends. At night in shadows, that makes him virtually invisible. The kid's like, what the heck? And so behind him, pardon my intrusion, but aren't you a bit too young, as the hour is extremely late to be haunting this neighborhood? Should you not be home in bed? So the kid says, I suppose, but I'm waiting for someone. Do you mind? He says. And Nightcrawler thinks, he must be like me, with a relative or friend as a patient here. Would you be more comfortable inside? And he says, there's no place for me in there. Kids are only allowed in as sickos, meaning they're sick themselves. They're afraid we'll wreck the hospital or something, like we don't know how to behave. And he's like, jerks. Sometimes kids know better than adults what's really going on. And so Nightcrawler says, what should I do? I can't leave him here. But how to get him back where he belongs? I don't even know his name. And so suddenly you get a flashlight, most likely a security or police officer. What the heck's going on here? What are you people doing here? This is private property. You ain't supposed to be here. So Nightcrawler says, I can explain. I don't want to hear it. Plaza's closed for the night, like the sign says. How'd you both get in here anyway? With the gates and doors locked tight. Better move along and don't let me catch you back in here. Next time I'll call the cops. So it was a security guard. Love the shadow of Nightcrawler there. So here's they're in the cafeteria here. And the kid says, never much liked that stupid place. Nothing good ever came out of it, that's for sure. And Nightcrawler says, it's hardly that awful. What do you know, says the kid, that a growing boy needs their nourishment. So try some pie and hot cocoa. It's delicious. Thanks, but I'm not hungry. And he says, my name's I'll say it the English way. My name's Kurt Wagner, says Nightcrawler. Daniel Cameron, says the kid. You know, Daniel, I have a very dear friend in the intensive care ward in critical condition. I don't know whether she'll live or die. She's lucky in a way, though. Unconscious as she is, at least she's out of it. I have to wait. Um, Watching the days drift past, counting the seconds, hoping for the best, imagining the worst, wondering why it's taking so long. And Daniel says, "Isn't much better when you're sick, except you've got more at stake." You sound like you speak from experience, says Nightcrawler. "Ancient history, over and done with. All the more reasons, it seems, for you to be snug a bed at home. You trying for a relapse?" And the kid says, "That'll be the day." Real quick before I turn the page. One of the neat things about cartoonists during, you know, the probably the early 90s down are all these marks that were made. Like you can see here, these ticks around the neck, here for the cheekbones, here again for the bottom, just to create shade and to create, you know. So it was really, you look at them. I mean, there's nothing in there except just to provide, wrinkles and stuff like that. So besides, it isn't safe, says Nightcrawler. Says who? I stayed home like the perfect little boy my whole life. I live here, Mr. Wagner. This city is my home. Why should I be scared of it? And Nightcrawler says, "Not scared, Daniel. Careful, respectful of its dangers. By rights, you should not be here with me. We only just met. You've no idea what kind of person I am, whether or not I can be trusted. That I can be is your good fortune. Next time you might not be so lucky. What of your parents? They're certain to be upset once they find you missing." "It's no big deal. They know where I am." And so, Nightcrawler thinks, they allow this? Don't they care? What kind of parents are they? "Nevertheless, young man, I would feel better if you were home. Suit yourself. Makes no difference to me," says the kid. Typical. When you need one the most, there isn't a taxi to be seen. And the kid says, "It's okay. I'd rather walk. It isn't far, only straight cross town to the west side." "Shall we go then?" says Nightcrawler. And so the two of them kind of are walking, and Nightcrawler's concerned with his mood. And he says, "Daniel, I used to be in the circus." And so he does his acrobats. And the kid, you can see him finally uh, smile. And so he says, "Let's cut through the park." And Nightcrawler's like, "No, stay with me." And he's like, "I was not listening." So he teleports to try and get in front of him. And he's like, "Catch me if you can, Mr. Snowpoke." And then he's already there. And he's like, "What?" And then, of course, you get the how. And so he's like, "Nobody gets me that easy." And no matter where he goes, he's there, of course. And he's doing some juggling, kind of entertaining the kid. And so, after time has passed, "Don't lose any. I borrowed these balls from the park equipment shed to be returned when we're done. Magic isn't a matter of power, witches and spells, that sort of thing. It's a creation of a state of mind that becomes a state of being." So, anyway, as you can see, dawn is happening. And Daniel says, "The sky's almost light. I gotta go." And he goes, "Oh my god, I lost track of time." And he was like, Daniel was enjoying himself. He's as sad as having to stop as I. "Before we leave, one last hand. I'll muck it up." No. And so he's gonna teach him how to juggle. And so he gets to his house and he says, "I'm glad I met you." And he says, "Maybe I'll see you later." at the hospital and says, I'll be there today anyway. He says, Daniel, wait. There's a secret of myself I need to show you. And so he uses the image inducer and turns it off. He wants to show him what he really looks. He says, wow, oh wow. I thought you were something different about you, but I never imagined, I never dreamed. Fantastic. And he says, you're not afraid of my pal? No way. And hey, Kurt, don't worry about your sick lady friend. She'll be fine. Trust me. So, the next day, or later still, Kurt's very happy. He says, excuse me, nurse, I'm looking for a friend, a lad about 12 named Daniel Cameron. And he says, I'm afraid you're too late. He says, I beg your pardon? This is Daniel. He died last night. Poor thing. He had cancer. And he says, there must be some mistake. Last night I saw, I spoke, I touched. And he realized that it was a ghost. Who were you waiting for, Daniel? The Reaper? Why did you show yourself to me? Was that an accident, coincidence, or perhaps the answer to a desperate prayer? Who was trying to comfort whom? Whichever it worked. Perhaps, my friend, this truly is a great secret. The world, like a juggler's ball, goes round and round and round. And the trick is to live the best you can while you can. For that way, there will always be light shining bravely, joyously, even in the deepest darkness. So, thus ends our story here. And as always, this would have been the back cover. So, all right. The Classic X-Men number 9. Chris Claremont, Dave Cockrum, and John Bolton in the backup story. Hope you enjoy these Classic X-Men. I truly do. I find it a better experience to get the overall story. So, hope you liked it. So, like and subscribe, and thanks for listening. Goodbye.